Hello. Welcome. Good evening. And this is
I can tell you one time.
The War Room.
Don't want it with us.
And this intro was brought to you
Then we'll fuck you up. I can tell you one time.
by the New Watch podcast host, Jimmy James.
One time. This day belongs to us.
And you gotta hand it to him. I just told him I wanted an intro song. I didn't tell him how to do it. I didn't ask him how to do it. I just said, do what you do best. And this is what he gave me. You brilliant son of a bitch. I love it. Yeah. This is what he gave me. It's a longer intro than usual, yes. But we've been gone a while. And I wanted to give it to you straight. And he's just gonna keep doing that. Which is why I call him... What did I call him? Oh yeah, Jimmy Screech. Because he does that. And that was the intro. You guys, if you don't watch the New Watch podcast, you really ought to give it a fair shake, because Jimmy and Tony York, they put together a pretty interesting show. And it's because of the way he does his intro for that show, I was motivated to ask him very kindly to do the same for me, which he very graciously did, and he provided that intro, because you know that I typically do my intros with 8-bit Nintendo soundtracks, and I thought, you know what, we should do something a little more fun to involve some of the other people on my server. So, for those of you who don't know, I am your host, Sean Pwnery, and this is the War Room, and I do host my own Discord server, which is open to everybody. If you see the links in the description in the video, you'll find an invite code, and it is open to everybody. As long as you come in and behave yourselves and act appropriately, I've got very few rules, so as long as you abide by those, we're good to go. What I would like to start off with tonight, before I really get into the stories, let me go ahead and bring in my co-hosts, and then I wanted to start off tonight sort of lighthearted and with a little bit of comedy. So if you guys would indulge me, to let me do my awesome Slavic accent, I will tell you what tonight's show is sponsored in part by. And I'm fighting allergies, and I had an inconclusive test for Rona this week, so I've been in isolation from most people. But for fun, one of my co-hosts today, which is here, his name is Jaime Japorajisia. And he does have Rona for the second time this year. So he actually has something in common with Auntie Maxine in his great state of California. They both have Rona twice this year. So, good evening to you, sir.
Hello. Not dead yet. That's kind of nice.
My other co-hosts are, some of you may know him from either Zeke Shoots or from my server. This is Scott P79, who is currently muted, so I guess he's slightly AFK. And my last host, which I did do this as a joke, don't take offense to it, I just thought it would be funny. This is the Poor Saw Patriot, also known as the Polish Hammer. So, good evening to you, sir.
So I'm a surf, huh?
It was a joke. Just relax.
Well, I know where it got that joke from.
You know where it came from, but I'll fix it later. I'll promise I'll fix it later.
Hey,
Anyway,
I just ruined the moment. I won't be playing my intro then.
no. But tonight, I want to share with you something special because we not only do we have news from Ukraine, I have news from the Far East in China, and I have news today for you from the great Russian bear himself. Because you may not be aware of this because Western audiences are given less and less coverage of the war on the other side of the world. And that's fine. It's going to happen. So be it. But what I'd like you to know is that McDonald's is no longer conducting business in Russia. The entire Russian Federation is devoid of McDonald's through sanctions, through social justice warrioring, through everything. They're out. Coca-Cola out. Pepsi out. Nike out. Adidas painfully out. But one man, one vision, one man bought all 800 McDonald's locations in the Russian Federation. One guy bought all of it. And you have to ask yourself, is he an oligarch? And if the answer to that question is yes, then the next question is, why has he not been sanctioned into the Stone Age? I don't have the answer to that question. But that man bought all 800 McDonald's locations in the Russian Federation. So, I am proud to tell you, tonight's War Room is sponsored in part by McStallin's. This, on your screen, is the new logo of what used to be McDonald's in Soviet Russia. Today, we bring you McStallin's. And the new owner says that despite the fact that I cannot use McDonald's colors, I cannot use Big Mac, I cannot use Golden Arches, he had to change it to this. These colors, this logo. This is true. I didn't make this shit up. The McStallin's I made up, but the logo is his. The colors are his. He came up with this. And I thought, you know what? I'm not monetized. So I need as much financial help as I can get. So I reached out to Comrade Oligarch who bought all 800 McStallin's. And I said, can you help me, Comrade? And he said, yes, I can help you. And I thought, great. Okay, I will do commercial for your establishment in Soviet Russia. So, first of all, I'd like to tell you, welcome to McStallin's. What can I take for your order, comrade? Well, what do you have? Well, comrade, today's special is quarter Putin with cheese with side of Lenin lime soda, gulag sized. I don't know. See, I don't really like those. What else do you have? Well, I have McBrezhnev's lettuce and tomato sandwich. I don't think I want that. What else you got? Well, we couldn't have Big Mac, but what I can offer you is Big Mikhail with extra Gorby sauce. What else do you got? I have children. Ah, okay. We got the perfect sandwich for you. We have the Nikki meal. And it comes with coloring book. This sounds good. What do you got in it? Coloring book comes with red and yellow crayons. Why? So you can draw hammer and sickle. I don't know. Listen, you came to McStallin's. You take what we give you, or we take you to real gulag. Fine, whatever. So anyway, yeah, today's show is brought to you by McStallin's. Listen, I've been joking around with the people on my Discord server all week. They're just humoring me. I know it's stupid. Anyway, let's get to the real meat and potatoes of what's going on today. Because today is actually day 114 in the illegal Russian incursion into the Ukraine. That part is not a joke. People are dying. People are fighting. There's no joke here. I'm dead serious. I just wanted to break the tension with a little bit of humor and a really bad Russian accent. But I'm still better than that fucker in, what was his name? FPS Russia. I still do better Russian. Anyway, all that joking aside, we do have a real show for you today. We have been gone for 2 weeks. It's my fault. Real life has gotten in the way. For those of you who don't know, my dad is 87 years old. He had 2 giant blood clots removed from his femoral arteries. I can tell you that he's doing better, but he is grumpy as fuck because he had large incisions in his thighs. And the big joke was is they shaved him down there so he looks like a 5-year-old boy. That was fun. Teasing him about that. That was fun. Anyway, because we've been gone for so long, I know that the live chat's going to be a bit slow, but I do see Shady Hill Homestead, and I know that the Polish Hammer is also here in the chat. He probably wasn't privy to the conversation in the War Room Green Room prior, but what I thought I would do is we have changed the format of the show slightly. What I can tell you is that the scroller at the bottom of the screen is accurate to today. I have updated that. So that is the same. What is different is I'm going to present to you the stories generally between the last week in review. So between last Friday to today is what I will share to you. However, my co-hosts, if they have something they would like to share with you, will present a story and I will try my best to click their screen shares so you guys can see it. Because I'm hitting the generalities, and these guys will hit the specifics of stories that I may have overlooked or left open for them to present to you. So anyway, those of you who are new here, welcome. But these are my co-hosts. This is the Warsaw Patriot at the top left. This is Scott B79 at the bottom right. And this is not the Mandalorian, despite what it says in his thumbnail, but this is Jaime, who is a friend of mine and a rancher behind enemy lines in the sort of great state of California. Congratulations.
It's called California.
Well, congratulations to the Golden State Warriors. Just don't let Steve Kerr drive social justice warrior me to death for the next 2 weeks, because they did win the NBA Finals. Anyway.
California love.
Okay. Yeah, okay. That was good. That was good. Anyway, so my stories are going to be a bit backwards. Usually when I do my timeline, I start from the oldest and work my way to the newest, and I do the timeline in the correct order. However, because of my sources and feeds, it's backwards now. So I had to start from the bottom and work my way up. So just bear with me, please. My first story for you comes from last Friday. And that would be day 107. So any stories my co-hosts provide to you prior to that, they're welcome to do so, and I will screen share it. But me personally, day 107 is where we'll start, and I will take you to day 114, which is today. Anyway, I will start with this photo here. And it came to you at 7:20 a.m. Friday, which would have been 2:20 p.m. Ukrainian time last Friday. Ukraine is quickly running out of ammunition as they continue to push back against the Russian invasion. Ukrainian Deputy Head of Military Intelligence Vadim Skidbinsky said in an interview that the violent conflict has exhausted the majority of the Ukrainian artillery. Skibitsky said that overseas contributions were supplying the battle on the front line, but that Ukraine was still severely underprepared compared to their enemy. Everything now depends on what the West provides us, Skibitsky said in an interview with The Guardian. Ukraine has one artillery piece to 10 to 15 artillery pieces for the Russians. What he's saying is they're outnumbered 15 to 1. Our Western partners have given us about 10% of what they have. The U.S., along with its allies, has supplied Ukraine with billions of dollars in aid and weapons to defend itself against Russian President Vladimir Putin's invasion. We have almost used up all of our artillery ammunition and are now using 155 millimeter NATO standard caliber shells. Europe is also delivering lower caliber shells, but as Europe runs out, the amount is getting smaller, obviously. Allied leaders are still with Ukraine. Last week, President Biden said that the U.S. plans to send advanced rocket systems and munitions to the country that will enable it to more precisely strike key targets in the battlefield, and promised that he won't pressure Ukraine to make any concessions. European and other allied countries have taken in millions of refugees displaced in the conflict, in which Russia has been accused of war crimes against civilians. The U.S. has said that it's willing to accept about 100,000 refugees. Sidebar, that's fucking garbage. Because if you look at the number of refugees that Poland has taken in, this is inexcusable. Anyway. And while videos and images of alleged atrocities have shocked the world, domestic crises and nearly 3.5 months have pulled focus from the largest war in Europe since World War II. Now, Kyiv officials are concerned about international, quote, war fatigue. War fatigue in terms of media coverage. So, some of you may realize that we have done this show in the past, day to day to day. And let me tell you, since I have been hosting this since the beginning, that is a lot of work. The having a 9 to 5 and keeping your house together, paying your bills, coming home, doing all the show prep for the entire day's worth of information coming out of that battle, and then providing it to you all was taxing. But you know what? I enjoyed it. It was a labor of love, you can call it. The problem is all my sources slowed down. And it got to the point where I couldn't do this day to day to day because they would not provide the source information day to day to day, despite the fact that I've used 8 to 12 sources every day. There's a lot of overlap, and there was a lot of, we're not going to cover it. Or there was a lot of, well, not a lot will happen today. That's why we're at this kind of week in review type situation. My apologies. I just have to work with what I was given. War fatigue in terms of international observance, same thing. The rest of the world is trying to catch their news too. I provide it. The news provides it around the world. But if they're not given sources every day, they can't give you this every day. So they're sort of choked off too. And truth be told, since the Russians have stopped their air campaign, and since the land campaign has been so stymied, not a whole lot happens day to day. So there's a lot of human interest stories that we sort of ignore and push off to the side. Human interest stories, while they may pull your heartstrings, they don't write the timeline for the war that we're trying to cover. As journalists, either as internet journalists, for me it's more psychological and sociological journalism, but everyone here has some vested interest. So if they don't give it to me, I can't give it to you. That's all I'm saying. That's why they're saying war fatigue. Because the longer this goes on, the less that the mass media will cover it, because they're sort of getting tired of it, which is unfortunate because You would think in a Western audience, if it bleeds, it leads. Anyway, whatever. Let's move on. Let me get rid of this. My co-host will bring you stories, by the way. I know I didn't mention that. I'm going to give you what I have, and then I'm going to open it up to them. So my timeline will take you from 2 Fridays ago up until today. They will take you in between, just so you know. I don't want to surprise you, I guess is a good way to put it. So let's go ahead and move on. I'm going to fast forward 3 days. It's going to be Monday of this week, which would have been day 110. And I have this photo to share with you, which doesn't look like much, but just let me set the stage for you. The Wikimedia Foundation, which owns Wikipedia, has filed for an appeal against a Moscow court decision demanding that it remove information related to the Russian invasion of Ukraine, arguing that people have a right to know the facts of this war. Sure, right? Free open press. A Moscow court fined the Wikimedia Foundation 5 million rubles. Now, that might sound a lot, but the ruble is in the fucking toilet. It's $88,000 US, just so you know. Anyway, the Wikimedia Foundation has been fined 5 million rubles per day for refusing to remove what it had termed disinformation from Russian language Wikipedia articles on the war, including, quote, the Russian invasion of Ukraine, end quote, and, quote, war crimes during the Russian... Wait a minute, where'd it go? War crimes during the Russian invasion of Ukraine, end quote. Sorry, I had the spacing wrong. And, quote, massacre in Bucha, end quote. So it's 3 stories. This decision implies that the well-sourced, verified knowledge on Wikipedia, it's 2 different names, that is inconsistent with Russian government accounts constitutes disinformation. This came from Stephen Laporte, the Associate General Counsel at the Wikimedia Foundation. Wikipedia, which says it offers, quote, the second draft of history, end quote, is one of the few remaining major fact-checked Russian language sources of information for Russians after a crackdown on media in Moscow. The government is targeting information that is vital to people's lives in a time of crisis, Laporte said. We urge the court to reconsider in favor of everyone's rights to knowledge, access, and free expression. The Moscow court argued that it cast as the disinformation on Wikipedia posed a risk to public order in Russia, and that the foundation, which is headquartered in San Francisco, California, was operating inside Russia. The foundation was prosecuted under a law about the failure to delete banned information. The case was brought by Russia's communications regulator Roskomnadzor, which did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Imagine that. The Wikipedia appeal, which was filed on June 6th, so 11 days ago, with details released on Monday, argues that removing information is a violation of human rights. It said Russia has no jurisdiction over the Wikimedia Foundation, which was globally available in over 300 languages. Wikipedia entries are written and edited by volunteers, which, look, I'm not going to insult your intelligence. You all know that. I do it. You do it. Some of us do it. I do it a lot because as I got older, I became a real student of history. Narratives of the war, Europe's biggest ground invasion since World War II, vary drastically and have become highly politicized, with journalists in both Moscow and the West routinely accused of misreporting the war. Ukraine says that it is the victim of an unprovoked imperial-style land grab by Russia, and that it will fight to the end to reclaim the territory that Russian forces have occupied. Kyiv has repeatedly asked the West for more help to fight Russia. Vladimir Putin and Russian officials do not use the words war or invasion. They cast it as a, quote, special military operation aimed at preventing the persecution of Russian speakers in eastern Ukraine. Sidebar, they speak the same fucking language. Putin also says the conflict is a turning point in Russian history. A revolt by Moscow against the United States, which he says has, quote, humiliated Russia since the 1991 fall of the Soviet Union, and pushed to enlarge NATO military alliances. Ukraine and its Western backers deny Moscow's claims, obviously, that Russian speakers were persecuted. Kyiv says Russian forces have committed war crimes, including killings, torture, and rape in places such as Bucha. Russia says that the alleged evidence of war crimes consists of carefully constructed fakes, and that Ukraine and its Western backers have spread disinformation about Russian forces. Think about that last sentence for a second. Russia is accusing the rest of the world that they are following constructed fakes of a country that they invaded.
Pretty sure the mass graves say otherwise.
Exactly.
Or how about the phones that were fucking recorded of the Russian soldier and his wife? His wife was giving him permission to actually rape an actual Ukrainian woman. What the hell does that tell you?
Someone needs to be Lorena Bobbitt.
The country that is talking about accusations of fake news is the country that has invaded a sovereign nation.
They're so full of shit.
The
It's not even
absurdity
funny.
of it is just mind-boggling. Anyway.
Russia is so full of shit.
Yeah, that's why they all have brown eyes. Anyway, that's a joke. That's a bad joke, but it's a joke regardless. Anyway, moving on. So I'm going to take you now into Tuesday, day 111. And I'm going to show you this. Wait a minute. Nope. No, I did that one. Sorry. I don't know what's going on with me. Okay, so here's the picture here. That's a good picture. 1:28 p.m. Central Standard Time, my time, on Tuesday, which would have been 8:28-ish Ukrainian time. Top official in the Russian separatist group, the Donetsk People's Republic, the DPR. Listen, sidebar. If you're in America and you know anything about porn, don't ever start an acronym with DP. Just saying. Urged Moscow on Tuesday to send ballistic missiles to counter Ukrainian artillery strikes. Spokesman for the DPR People's Militia, Eduard Basurin, told Russian media outlets that DPR forces needed more ground and air-launched munitions like the Iskander missile system, which is a short-range ballistic missile. Basurin said that he was making the comments publicly instead of through military channels to make sure that Moscow, quote, pays attention to help its supportive forces eliminate the enemy artillery in the region. The plea comes as Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has made similar calls for assistance from Western allies as he looks to push Russian forces out of Ukraine's occupied territory. Zelensky said that the Donetsk and Luhansk regions were seeing some of the most historically brutal fighting, quote, in Europe and for Europe as the war nears its fourth month. Russia has claimed great advances in the Donbass, but Ukrainian forces have prevented them from gaining complete control over the eastern regions. Moscow appeared to make some gains in the Luhansk region Tuesday after Russian forces destroyed the last remaining bridge over the Sivietsky Donets River near the contested city of Sevierodonetsk. Sevierodonetsk. Sorry, I sped through that. Sevierodonetsk. Effectively blocking immediate access to western Ukraine for resistance forces to enter the city. I don't know why I continue to keep writing this shit in Cyrillic, but it's good practice. Reports have surfaced in recent weeks that suggest that Russia has been unable to efficiently resupply its military needs as it looks to secure full control over eastern and southern Ukraine. Kyiv's defense ministry said last week that Russian forces were relying on 1950 Soviet-era mines to continue their fight in the southern region of Kherson. The UK's defense ministry confirmed Tuesday that Russia intends to increase its defense budget by $10 to $12 billion, but it remains unclear if Moscow can even achieve this. Russian government funding is allowing the country's defense industrial base to be slowly mobilized to meet demands placed on it by the war in Ukraine. This came from the UK Defense Ministry Tuesday. But the ministry also noted that Moscow could face an uphill battle in expanding its defense budget following severe international sanctioning. Russia's production of high-quality optics and advanced electronics likely remain troubled and could undermine its efforts to replace equipment lost in Ukraine. Zelensky argued Tuesday that increased aid was more important than ever to counter Russia's occupation and to, quote, prevent stagnation to the front. So that's Tuesday's news. Moving right along, I'm taking it into Wednesday. This was day 112. I have this photo here for you, which is pretty good. I tried to find better photos, but this one's pretty good. 8:52 a.m. my time, Central Standard Time, which would have been 2:52 Ukrainian local time. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg confirmed Wednesday that Western allies will meet this week to discuss another aid package in support of Kyiv ahead of the NATO summit earlier this month. But Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky warned that defenses are needed immediately. I'm pretty sure that's a can on the end of that AK. Anyway, Zelensky said Tuesday that arms are urgently needed even as Russia's defensives appear to be flagging. We keep telling our partners that Ukraine needs modern anti-missile weapons. Our country does not have them at a sufficient level yet. But it is our country in Europe that needs such weapons most right now, he says. Delay with its provision cannot be justified. Reports have surfaced in recent weeks suggesting that Russia's arms are flagging as Moscow struggles to adequately replenish its supplies. They have had major logistical issues. That cannot be contested. Like, they're having a very hard time keeping their shit running. Ukraine's defense ministry claimed last week that Russian forces were relying on 1950 Soviet-era mines in the southern region of Kherson. Yes, there will be overlaps in the stories, just so you know. And senior U.S. defense officials have said Russian troops have become increasingly reliant on dumb bombs in its stock of precision-guided missiles because they're just running out. So, obviously, most of you are already aware of this, but for those who are late to the party, there are two types of weapons. We call them smart weapons, which are laser-guided, GPS-guided, aimed, whatever. And then you have what's called dumbfire munitions, which is sort of old world technology. So think of like World War II, okay? A dumbfire bomb is sitting in a B-17, a B-24, or a B-29. And there's a guy sitting in the nose of a plexiglass plane with a Norden bomb sight aiming it to the best of his ability while dodging flak and machine gun fire, pointing at a target that he thinks is the right one because his briefing wasn't exactly very specific, with really grainy, not even 144p resolution photos that were probably taken from a fucking pilot that was pissing his shorts in outdated aircraft, right? And he's got to try to aim this bomb load on a target on a grainy
That's
photo.
what she said.
And when he drops those bombs, every fucking bomber behind him drops theirs at the same time because you're the lead plane. Okay? That's what's called dumbfire munitions. Or, say you're a P-47 pilot and you've got 8-inch rockets on the wings of your plane. And you're not going to hit a flying aircraft unless it's stationary, like a bomber, like a Heinkel. So you're going to pull the trigger on your thumbstick and you're going to fire off a rocket that goes in a straight line as best as it can to whatever you're pointing at. It's not guided. That's a dumbfire weapon. And what I'm talking about is that's what the Russians have been relegated to. They're running out of smart weapons and they're having to go to the old familiar. Point, aim, and pull the trigger and hope it hits the target. That's what they're talking about. Russian troops have become increasingly reliant on dumb bombs. As it stops.
Which is good for Ukraine.
Yes. But then again, it's bad for the civilian population.
Which is still good for Ukraine.
It's bad for Ukrainian civilians. It's good for Ukrainian military. Either way.
Well, it's good for Ukraine because it creates public sympathy for civilians.
Okay, so if you're talking about the PR war, yes. If you're talking about losing military assets because they're killing civilian targets, still difficultly yes. I'll give you that. But you see what I'm saying? They're going way backwards. I mean, shit, they're using fucking T-62s, dude.
I know.
Anyway.
Where are those T-14s that you're so much a big fan of?
They got them. They got them.
They got less than 100 of them.
I don't think they even have those anymore.
No, they haven't deployed those to Ukraine because they won't. They're too damn expensive. Also, could you imagine the PR nightmare if the Ukrainians captured one?
Could you imagine the PR nightmare? Could you imagine the PR nightmare if my two friends from New York and New Jersey captured one? Anyway. Let's see. However, Zelensky warned that Moscow's reliance on dated artillery is an even greater threat to Ukraine when it comes to casualties. See, I was touching on that already. Even though Russia has fewer and fewer modern missiles with each passing day, Ukraine's need for such systems remains, Zelensky said. Russia still has enough Soviet types of missiles, which are even more dangerous. They are many times less precise, and therefore threaten civilian objects and ordinary residential buildings much more, he added. Stoltenberg says that he believes NATO allies will agree to another comprehensive assistance package for Ukraine during the Madrid summit set to begin June 29th, 12 days from today. NATO allies will meet this week to discuss bolstering their defensive posture in Europe as concerns mount that Russian President Vladimir Putin could push his offensive campaign beyond Ukrainian borders. Now, we've heard that for weeks. We've covered it here, but it's still coming up in conversation. Stoltenberg confirmed Wednesday that Zelensky will participate at the NATO summit later this month. Moving right along. I'm going to take you into Thursday already, and this is where things start to get a little closer to home. So I'm going to show you this photo here. And yes, you might take a look at that guy on the right and think, is that Tim from Military Arms Channel? And you may take a look at the guy in the picture on the left and go, is that what Pwnery looks like? Let me tell you, no, that's not what I look like. I'm half Korean, but I don't look that Asian. Let's just get that out of the way right the fuck now. 12:52 p.m. Central Standard Time. Wait a minute. Time out. I should address the chat. Good evening to you, Gunmetal Guy, and Terry Share, and Shady Hill Homestead, and my co-host, the Warsaw Patriot, who is in both places. Anyway, let me move on. 12:52 p.m. Central Standard Time. This would be Thursday, day 113. 7:52 p.m. local Ukrainian time. Members of Congress are working to locate 2 former U.S. servicemen from Alabama who were reportedly captured by Russian forces while fighting in Ukraine. Congressman Robert Adderholt of Alabama is working to help locate a Lawrence County man, 27-year-old Andy Ty Nokwin, the guy on the left, obviously, of Trinity, who hasn't been heard from in more than a week. Hyun and another Alabama man, 39-year-old Alexander Druki of Adderholt released a statement about efforts to locate Hyun. The family of Andy Tai Nok Hyun, 27, of Trinity, Alabama, in Lawrence County, reached out to my office this week. Hyun, a former U.S. service member, volunteered to go fight with the Ukrainian army in their current war against Russia. According to Hyun's family, they have not been in contact with him since June 8th, when he was in the Kharkiv area of Ukraine. As you can imagine, his loved ones are very concerned about him. My office has placed inquiries with both the United States Department of State and the Federal Bureau of Investigation, trying to find any information possible. While my office works to get more details, I would ask everyone to pray for Andy's safety and to pray for the comfort of his family back in Lawrence County. Senators Richard Shelby and Tommy Tuberville, as well as Congressman Terry Sewell, are helping the family of Druk. Senator Shelby's office is in contact with a family member in Alabama regarding the situation. Shelby's spokesperson says, "We are currently working with them to do everything we can to assist." Sewell released the following statement. Earlier this week, the mother of Alexander Druk, I'm going to say Druk because that's kind of what it looks like, a Tuscaloosa Army veteran who volunteered to assist the Ukrainian army in combating Russia, reached out to my office after losing contact with her son. According to his family, they have not heard from Druk in several days. My office has been in contact with the State Department, the FBI, and other members of the Alabama congressional delegation regarding this urgent matter. We will continue to do everything in our power to assist in locating him and finding answers for his family. As we work to determine his whereabouts, please join me in praying for Alexander and his family during this incredibly difficult time. Spokeswoman for Tuberville said that the State Department has been in contact with our office and we are closely monitoring the situation. Now, some of you may be looking at the guy on the right and going, okay, yeah, he's an Alabama native. And some of you may be looking at the guy on the left going, he's Vietnamese. And then in the back of your mind, the quiet part in your head is, what's that got to do with us? Well, let me inform you that during the War on Terror, the person responsible for the invention of the U.S. Moab thermobaric bomb was Vietnamese and a refugee from the Vietnam War who grew up to serve the United States to create the Moab. So to have a Vietnamese citizen, a Vietnamese ethnicity citizen of the United States lost is quite relevant. No, I'm not Vietnamese, but I can recognize and respect the correlation. And it doesn't make him any less American or patriotic or heroic for doing what he's done. So yeah, it's pretty fucking important. And he's been captured by the Russians. Now, the Ukrainians who capture Russians to this day have not condemned a single Russian captor to death. Do not for a split second think that the Russians will return that favor. Don't even assume that. These two could be condemned to die. Then what happens? Just a thought. Moving on. Same time, or same day rather, day 113 Thursday. I will show you this photo. I call it the Cocksuckers Convention, but you can come up with your own name. 2:51 p.m. Central Standard Time, which would have been 8:51 p.m. in good old Moscow. Chinese President Xi Jinping expressed support for Russia's sovereignty and security in a call with Vladimir Putin on Wednesday, while the Kremlin said that the two leaders agreed to increase cooperation in energy, finance, and industry. Sidebar. Listen, motherfucker. There is no question of sovereignty and security for Russia. They are the invaders, you stupid fuck. They're not the ones under threat of losing their sovereignty or their security. They're the attackers, dipshit. End sidebar. China's support for Russia has come under increased scrutiny from the U.S. after Putin's invasion of Ukraine, which Xi has so far refused to condemn. Xi emphasized that China has always independently assessed the situation in Ukraine on the basis of the historical context and the merits of the issue, and actively promoted world peace and stability of the global economic order. This came from Chinese state media outlet Xinhua. It's Chinese state media. Communist China state media. Just saying. All parties should push for a proper settlement of the Ukraine crisis in a responsible manner, she says, adding that China, for this purpose, will continue to play its due role. Chinese State Department spokesman Ned Price rebuked Xi and Putin's call on Thursday, accusing China of, quote, echoing Russian propaganda. To put it bluntly, we are concerned about China's alignment with Russia, Price said at this briefing. The People's Republic of China has already made a choice. More than 3 months now into Russia's invasion of Ukraine, China, despite the atrocities that have been committed, despite the violence, despite the loss of life, despite the global implications, including when it comes to food insecurity in the world, not only in the region but well beyond, China is still choosing to stand by Russia. Just weeks before Russia invaded Ukraine, Putin visited Xi in Beijing during the Winter Olympics, and the two leaders issued a 5,000-word statement saying that their partnership has, quote, no limits. Let me just point out, I've already said way more than 5,000 words, and some of you are probably going, when is he going to shut the fuck up? Anyway, that's a joke. The Kremlin, meanwhile, said that, quote, the Russian-Chinese relations are at an unprecedented high level and are constantly improving. Let me tell you why I know that's bullshit. Because China is raping Russia when it comes to buying oil for pennies on the dollar, or rubles on the dollar. Anyway, Chinese president noted the legitimacy of Russia's actions to protect its fundamental national interests in the face of challenges to its security created by external forces. This came from the Kremlin, which obviously you can't trust. I gotta get this guy's face off my screen. Moving on. I'm going to take you now into... Really? Okay, so now we're up to today. Today is day 114. My first story has this picture here. 6:21 a.m. Central Standard Time. This is when the fox hunt in my house begins because I have 8 Yorkshire Terriers who will not leave me the fuck alone. But if you're in the Ukraine, it's 12:21 p.m. lunchtime. Ukraine on Friday got the green light from the executive arm of the EU after it recommended that the war-torn nation be granted, quote, candidate status, as Kyiv seeks to join the 27-nation alliance. President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, she's the woman on the far right bottom corner of this photo, says that Ukraine has clearly shown commitment to live up to European values and standards and embarked before the war on its way towards the EU. We recommend to give Ukraine the candidate status on the understanding that the country will carry out a number of important reforms. I'm pretty sure they've done everything you've asked. The top EU official said Ukraine has already implemented 70% plus of EU, quote, rules, norms, and standards, but noted that Kyiv had some work to do before it comes to, quote, the rule of law, oligarchs, anti-corruption, and fundamental rights. Entrance into the European alliance is merit-based, explained by von der Leyen. Progress depends entirely on Ukraine, she added. Leaders from the 27-nation bloc are set to discuss the president's recommendation next week in Brussels during a summit. Ukraine, along with Moldova and Georgia, formally requested to join the EU just days after Russia invaded the former Soviet Republic with the intention of taking over its eastern and southern regions. Moldova, which has also had direct threats levied at it by Moscow, was additionally recommended candidate status by von der Leyen today. Moldova is on a real pro-reform, anti-corruption, and European path. It still has a long way to go, but we believe it has the potential to live up to the criteria. Basically, all this bullshit you're hearing right now is them saying, yeah, we'll let you in, but we're going to let you suffer a bit more first. That's what she's saying. Kind of disgusting, actually. 3 of the largest EU powers, including France, Germany, and Italy, have all shown their solidarity with Kyiv and visited Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky yesterday, Thursday. Though Ukraine appears to have broad support for joining the EU, it remains unclear how quickly it could actually be brought into the alliance's folds. Ukrainians are ready to die for European perspective. Von der Leyen said Friday, we want them to live with us. The European dream. Sidebar. She's full of shit. She is absolutely full of shit. Jens von Stoltenberg and NATO is absolutely full of shit. The day that this country was threatened is the day that the EU and NATO should have said, you're in. You don't want to be taken over by them and you want to be us, you will be us. Because if they took them in instantly, they would have called Russia's bluff instantly. They would have said, now what are you going to do? He's one of us. And they didn't do that, did they? Because they're fucking cowards. And I will stand by that. Probably to the day I die. They will stand by that. You see, the thing is people like me and Night Strike and Scott and my other co-host Jaime and even the Polish Hammer, they would probably all agree with me when I said, why are we worried about what the fuck Russia thinks? Why? We don't care. You see, Article 5 of the NATO resolution is attack against one is an attack against all, right? We know this. We've heard this for 4 months now. And the fact of the matter is this. If we wanted to, we could have been flying in C-130s full of gear into into Ukrainian airspace. We could have employed a no-fly zone over Ukrainian airspace this entire time. Because we're not attacking Ukraine. We're helping them to defend it. And if Russia wants to attack our defenders of Ukraine, that would be an Article 5 violation. But us being in there is not an Article 5 violation. We're not attacking Ukraine. We're defending them. They invited us to defend them. Instead of worrying about what the fuck Russia thinks, we should have sent every single asset that the EU and NATO and maybe even the United States had and just pull a fucking Dominic Toretto and throw our hands up in the air and be like, what the fuck are you going to do about this? You see, we don't have to worry about them. We could have went in there with everything we had to help them, and we would never be on the wrong side of this. If Russia attacked any one of our assets while we were in there, Article 5 violation. But just because we're in someone else's country helping them doesn't mean that we're violating it. We're not violating shit. We could have just moved right in. The fucking no-fly zone could have been instant. Why are we not doing it? Why is the world not doing it? Because everyone's afraid of the Cold War boogeyman of Russia and the wet dream of a dying Soviet derelict jerk-off. Why? Why does that one fucking balding piece of garbage have that much hold on the rest of the world? He's going to be dead in 3 years. There have been countless stories that he has cancer. He's doing this to leave his mark on the world. And the whole world is giving him that. Why?
The thing is, because people think he's actually capable of actually doing it.
He's not capable of shit.
Tell
And
that
if
to the
See, I
rest
thought
of the
you were
world.
going to go.
if he wanted to do something, don't you think he would have done it already? That's a rhetorical
Yeah, I thought
question.
you were going to go with nothing is stronger than family.
Whatever. We're not going to sit at the barbecue table and say grace before we drink Coronas and eat barbecue at Dominic Toretto's fucking backyard. No. The point is the solution to this has been in front of the world the entire time, and the entire world is being a bitch to one fucking balding asshole. And you know how hard that is for me to say? Because 10 years ago I'd have told you, Vladimir Putin is what we would strive to have here in America. That man led his country, right? He's not apologizing for nothing, and he grabbed his country by the scruff of its neck and he dragged him into the modern age. I'd have told you all of that. Like, Putin has balls. Putin has charisma. Putin has a plan. I would have told you all of that until the day he invaded Ukraine. Then I'm like, nope, sorry, you fucked up. You lost your biggest fan. I'm not his biggest fan. But you see what I'm getting at. Anyway, moving on. Let's move on. I've got 2 stories left for you, and then I'm going to let my panel open it up for the rest of you guys. Next story comes to you today, 11:07 a.m. Central Standard Time, or 6 p.m. Ukrainian time. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson made a second surprise visit to Kyiv Friday to meet with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. The visit was first announced on the Prime Minister's Twitter page and was confirmed that the information with Ukrainian authorities. Mr. President Volodymyr, it is good to be in Kiev again. The post to the Prime Minister's account said, along with a photo of him shaking hands with Zelensky. That photo there. Johnson's office confirmed that the Prime Minister and Zelensky discussed Ukraine's valiant fight against Russia and proposed a training program headed by the UK to help thousands of Ukrainian soldiers continue their, quote, heroic defense. Johnson said that Russian forces are taking heavy casualties, as you can see at the scroller at the bottom, and promised that the strategic endurance, that the strategic endurance that you will need will be provided. The training operation would instruct up to 10,000 Ukrainian servicemen for 3 weeks every 120 days using battle-proven British Army expertise. The program is intended to help Kyiv accelerate their deployment, rebuild their forces, and scale up their resistance as they continue to defend their nation's sovereignty against Russian invaders. International partners would also be invited to take part in the training program. My visit today in the depths of this war is to send a clear and simple message to the Ukrainian people. The UK is with you, and we will be with you ultimately until you prevail. As Ukrainian soldiers fire UK missiles in defense of your nation's sovereignty, they do so also in defense of the very freedoms we take for granted. Johnson's visit comes just 1 day after French President Emmanuel Macron and German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, Italian Prime Minister Mario Draghi, and Romanian President Klaus Iohannis also traveled to Kyiv. Ukraine has received widespread support from Western nations following Russia's illegal invasion in February, which has prompted the greatest security threat to Europe since World War II. That is not a cliche. That is true. Johnson's first visit in April marked the first of the 7 G7 nations to meet with Zelensky in person. President Biden, Captain Sundowner, and Japan's Prime Minister Fumio Kishida are the only 2 G7 leaders who have failed to travel to Kyiv. Yes, that's a dig. Moving on. My last story for you today actually doesn't come out of Ukraine at all. But I thought I would bring this to your attention because the War Room currently covers the war in Ukraine, an illegal incursion of the Russian Federation into a sovereign territory. But make no mistake, there is a world war on the horizon because China, obviously, is the other part of this axis of evil. And yeah, I called it axis of evil. You can't demonetize me. I'm not monetized, which means I don't answer to any of you. Last story I've got for you today. And I have a photo, a gorgeous photo of a beautiful ship. As in terms of an engineering marvel, bask in this. It's not garbage. It's quite nice. 11 a.m. 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. Sorry, I didn't do the translations to Beijing time. China, on Friday, today, launched its 3rd and most advanced aircraft carrier in Shanghai's Jingnan shipyard, with new combat systems that experts say are fast catching up with the U.S. Well, yeah, because imitation is the finest form of flattery, and a country who makes its living violating copyright violations from all over the world would obviously copy this shit.
And stealing other people's tech.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Because they can't actually design anything themselves.
Some of it they do. Anyway, this ship is named Fujian. The ship is China's first domestically designed and built catapult aircraft carrier. Now, let me tell you why that's bullshit. And I was gonna post a picture because I have anime memes the likes you've never seen. There's a picture of a girl sitting on a bench holding a beer, going, "Let me tell you why that's bullshit." And I'm about to tell you why this is bullshit. They claim that this is China's first domestically designed and built catapult aircraft carrier. Bullshit, because that fucking prow of that ship is Russian. The landing deck is American. I think Scott pointed out that's Nimitz class. The only thing that might be domestic is the angled shape of the, what do they call it? They call it an island on an aircraft carrier, right?
Yeah.
The island of that ship is domestic. Everything else is somebody else. So you're full of shit.
And even that island is like a ripoff of the British carrier.
I don't know. It's got some pretty weird shapes to it. Anyway, I guess.
Have you looked at the new British carrier?
No, I gotta look. But okay, to be fair, right? If you take, let's say, I'm gonna go with your theory. If I take a British island and a Nimitz class landing platform and a Russian launch platform and put them all together, I guess I could claim that's domestically produced. Because you're creating a greatest hits, right? And who else do we know who's doing this exact same thing that's allied to us? India. India.
I was going to say Japan.
No. India is currently building an aircraft carrier where the United States is providing the propulsion systems. The British is providing the radar systems. And I think the Russians provided the catapult launch system. So they would say the same thing. So to be fair, I'm going to say, okay, fine, whatever. This is your domestic greatest hits package. Fine. I can live with that. The electromagnetic catapult assisted launch system is a major upgrade from the less advanced ski jump style system used on the Liaoning and the Shandong, its two predecessors. According to the Center for Strategic and International Studies, CSIS, a Washington-based think tank. The new system, similar to the ones used by U.S. aircraft carriers, will allow China to launch a wider variety of aircraft from the Fujian faster and with more munitions aboard. Fair enough. In addition to the launch system, the Fujian is equipped with blocking devices and a full load displacement of more than 80,000 tons, Xinhua reported, adding that the ship will carry out mooring tests and navigation tests after today's launch. Matthew Funaliole, senior fellow at the CSIS's China project, told CNN, that's going to be good, previously that the new ship would be the Chinese military's first modern aircraft carrier. This is a pretty significant step forward, he says. They have really committed to building out a carrier program, and they continue to push the boundaries of what they're able to do. China names its aircraft carriers after its coastal provinces, with Liaoning in the northeast and Shandong in the east. Fujian in the southeast is the closest province to Taiwan, separated by a strait that is fewer than 80 miles. China's ruling Communist Party claims sovereignty over the self-ruling democracy in Taiwan. Shocker. Despite having never governed it, Chinese leader Xi Jinping has repeatedly said that the reunification between China and Taiwan is inevitable and refused to rule out the use of force. China now wields the largest naval force in the world, and aircraft carriers are the core vessels of any major power's fleet. The massive ships are essentially a mobile airbase, following for the rapid long-term deployment of aircraft and weaponry to a combat theater. China's naval buildup comes amid growing geopolitical tensions with the U.S., which under President Joe Biden is seeking to strengthen ties with allies and partners in the Asia-Pacific region to counter Beijing's growing economic influence and military might. I'm done. What I want to point out to you is strictly my opinion. Once upon a time in the world, the Royal Navy had the most powerful naval fleet in the world. And how did they do that? Through the use of dreadnought class battleships. And what instantly made the dreadnought class battleship obsolete was the advent of the aircraft carrier and naval aviation. That cannot be denied. Battleships became a thing of the past by World War II. The mighty Mo, as impressive as it is, became obsolete because of aircraft carriers and naval airplanes. Today, the Chinese are trying to convince you that they have the largest standing navy in the world with the most advanced aircraft carrier in the world. And what I'm going to tell you is that's bullshit. Because we in the United States and in the UK and in France have an implement of war that now makes the aircraft carrier technically obsolete. We have the Virginia class Flight 4 ballistic missile submarine. We have the Seawolf class ballistic nuclear submarine. We have the Ohio class ballistic nuclear submarine. The British have ballistic nuclear submarines. The French have ballistic nuclear submarines. That makes aircraft carriers obsolete because they can't see you. And we have ADCAPs, and we have Mark 48s, and we have Tigerfish torpedoes. And when Scott sent me a photo of this, the Fujian, my response was instant. Wow, that's going to make a really pretty artificial reef, isn't it? And you can confirm that. I sent you that shit this morning. That's going to make a beautiful artificial reef. You can try to scaremonger us into thinking that that aircraft carrier is advanced. I guarantee you, the USS Seawolf and half a dozen West Virginias are looking at that thing going, just say the word, I'll turn it into scrap. Anyway, that, for me, gentlemen, is all the stories I have for you today that brings you up to day 114. However, I'm about to do something rather rare because I have been receiving many suggestions and slight complaints that I do not let my co-host speak. So, I'm going to let the three of you decide which one of you want to go first. And if you have a story that you would like to share, just start. Share your screen share. I will put it to the panel so everyone watching can see. Which one of you want to go first? Jaime? Scott? Polish Warhammer? Nothing? You guys really didn't bring me any stories. You bastards. No? Alright. Fine. Whatever. Alright, so I tried to bring you a new format. Maybe next week they'll be more prepared. Maybe. Now that you know how it works. And you guys have anything you want to add before I play the music? Fine. Whatever. Fine. Sorry. I did bring this kind of impromptu on them, so they probably weren't ready for all this. But just in the future, so you guys know, I'm going to give you the week's worth of stories, and if they have anything you want to add, they're going to share it. And then if they have a screen share, I will bring it to your attention by highlighting them. So for example, if the Warsaw Patriot wants to share something, I would click him like this so he takes up the full screen, and that way if he wants to share something, he can. But since none of them seem to have anything,
There's the only thing I got is that there's some Ukrainian military actually ambushing some Russian troops from coming in.
do you have a screen share, a story you want to recite for that?
I sent you the video.
No. Okay. All right. I will look at it, but in the meantime, just bear in mind if you have something you want to share for the story or for the show next week, because we're going to do the same thing next week. If you have something you want to share, just have your screen share ready to go, and then what I'll do is I'll click it.
I think I have something.
All right, so that's your stream in there.
Yeah.
I click this.
So,
there you go.
huh?
You're on.
So,
Go right ahead.
okay, so there was a large kind of a kind of going back and forth attack, and already in advance of um, Kiev and Donetsk, where kind of Russian army was already kind of throwing all its pretty much aerial bombardment from its obviously its artillery, and put in ordered more troops on the 101 day ago, and kind of it was supposed to reinforce taking the Kiev capital and by the mention of Moscow capturing the east, and that it didn't go as well. Pretty much what the article would mention, it didn't go as well as planned because they faced severe resistance on the Kiev border and surrounding territories and Luhansk region by its civilians, and apparently they pushed them back out of that area, and they have to move their bombardment to a different zone. So yeah.
So in other words, Donetsk and Luhansk are being pushed back further and further into Russian territory.
Yes, that would
Well,
be.
serves them right. Those guys are assholes, man.
That's the only story I got in a nutshell. That's pretty much what I
That
got.
would be why that the separatists in Donetsk were asking for short-range missiles from the story that I had earlier. They were asking for short-range missiles so they can sort of help defend against Ukrainian artillery and missile strikes in retaliation.
And there was a mention on the bottom that they try to send some Russian special forces, quote unquote, into.
Are you talking FSB?
Yeah, it just said Russian special forces, didn't specify which. And apparently they were unsuccessful. Say the least, they were unsuccessful. There was 3 confirmed kills of Russian special forces, and they pretty much failed trying to take that part of Kiev with the bombardment.
Hey, what are the chances you think some of those Ukrainian forces are actually also Georgians helping them out?
Very possible, actually.
I mean, at this point, it's already like a melting pot of support.
Yes,
I'm pretty sure there's a few Polish speakers in there.
Without a doubt.
Also, you got the Belarus army.
There's also some
Belarusians.
Belarusian. There's also some Czechoslovakians, because there were some some rifles there, and they were speaking some notable language from the Czech Republic. Wink, wink.
I understand there's a few Brazilians there.
What?
Oh, there's also Mexicans.
Italians I've seen also, Hungarians.
I'm waiting to see like some American guys throwing some gangbanger signs.
I've got 2 friends, one from New York, one from New Jersey. They are still there. They have not been captured.
There's some Mexican Marines there that went in there.
The Barrett Army.
Yeah. So I don't know if they survived, but at least some of my people were up there.
They have been captured, so.
I mean, if they get captured, they're not coming back. But I was trying to figure out how to share. I was trying to figure out how to share the screen. So sorry if it took me long. And I was coughing up a lung.
Don't worry, I got it in there. It fit.
Okay, cool. I was coughing up a lung too, so I couldn't respond.
There was a story that came 2 weeks ago. I really wanted to cover this last week, but life got in the way. The Wagner Group. Now I'm surprised, Scott, you didn't bring this up. The Wagner Group had a base in country that was completely destroyed by the Ukrainian Air Force.
I figured that was going to be one of the stories you were going to cover. Anyways,
I didn't have it. Like, I was trying to leave certain things deliberately out in case you guys needed it for low-hanging fruit to share, but and unfortunately I don't have a screenshot for you, but this did come from 2 weeks ago. The Wagner Group, for those of you who don't know, as strange as this is, the Russians continue to accuse the Ukrainians of having neo-Nazis. The Wagner Group is a known neo-Nazi Russian group led by a Russian with a fucking Nazi eagle tattooed on his chest. And yet they're the ones accusing the Ukrainians of having neo-Nazis. Their forward operating base in Ukraine completely destroyed by land forces and air forces of the Ukraine. Unfortunately, that bald-headed, sunken-eyed idiot who runs it is still alive, as is that Duck Dynasty-looking motherfucker from Chechnya. He's still alive too. Because apparently Ukraine does not have a Seymour Haya yet. But you know what they do have? They have a Wally from Canada. And one can only hope he gets what he's looking for. Anyway, do you guys have anything else you want to add? You all good? Considering that you're all muted, I'm going to assume you're all good. Alright, so I've wasted an hour and 22 minutes of your time. I do apologize for not being here every Friday, like I said, but I'm going to go ahead and play this, which you haven't heard in a while. And I'm going to thank you all for watching and taking the time from your busy lives to join us, because Friday nights are busy. And I want to thank people like Shady Hill and Gunmetal Guy and Terry Scherer for joining the chat. I would encourage you to invite others to be here and maybe become more active in the chat. Anyway, if you're new to my channel, welcome. But if you're a regular here, welcome back. Either way, check out my other playlists and see if my other interests might be of interest to you. Yes, I've been a little slow with updates, but like I said, real life got in the way. Anyway, this was The War Room. This was day 114. We will be back next Friday, hopefully, stories permitting. Slava Ukraini, and good night.